No matter how many times you read these stories, people always love them. So we'll discuss that a little bit later on with my panel and much else besides. But for right now, let's talk about the residents of Millom, a tiny seaside town in Cumbria, because they've been up in arms about government plans to house around 40 asylum seekers in 8 homes, despite the town itself suffering from a housing shortage. Millom sits within the borough of Copeland, and talkTV has obtained an email sent in November 2022, 2 years ago, by Copeland Council to Serco, a major company which is contracted by the Home Office to accommodate asylum seekers in the area. It says, I would highly recommend that all areas of Copeland are unsuitable, with the sole exception of the outer estates within Whitehaven town. That said, specifically the following locations are definitely unsuitable: Millom and surrounding area due to its isolation from public services, including the police. We have reached out to Serco and Copeland Council for a response, but have not heard back yet. But we did hear back from the Home Office. They said, the Home Office has a statutory duty to provide safe and secure housing for asylum seekers, and we are continuing to work closely with local authorities, including in Millom, to manage any impact in the area and address local concerns. Manage impact, eh? Well, I've got 2 guests joining me right now with plenty to say about that. First up, the chair of Millom Town Council, Ged McGrath, and the spokesman for the Millom Community Action Group that opposes the scheme, Dean Myers. Dean, let me start with you first of all. So it seems as though the council sent a letter to Serco, who are making an awful lot of money out of rehousing some of these people, telling them that Millom was not suitable. You discover somehow that Home Office officials are going ahead with these housing plans anyway.
Yeah, it was brought to our attention via social media that this was the intention. When we actually looked into it, we didn't really realise how big that it was actually happening. Serco, obviously, you've tried yourself to speak to them. They won't even consult with us. We don't know anything that's happening. We didn't even know who was coming into the town. It was only through word of mouth from local people that we actually knew that HMOs were starting, and we didn't even know who was going in them.
Incredible. Ged, let me come to you. The town itself is pretty isolated. There's no police station. There's already a shortage of affordable housing for the people living there. There's no doctor's surgery, I'm told. I mean, what would the impact be if 40 migrants moved in?
Mike, let's not just beat about the bush about 40. We know that 20 plus houses were involved in this. Yeah. We as a council managed to get a number of those withdrawn by some of the developers. So we're not talking 40, we were talking a much larger number than that. And that's exactly why our community is up in arms about this. You know, this wasn't 1 or 2 houses. We're talking well over 20, and I think in actual fact there could well be more than that, and we haven't unearthed them all yet. So somewhere somebody has to take some responsibility in why is this small town in Cumbria suddenly become the target for all these houses to be turned into HMOs for asylum seekers?
And is it right that your understanding is the houses were actually bought by developers knowing that they could rent them out to asylum seekers?
We've been, as a council, proactive and talk where we can identify asylum seekers. We've contacted them directly and put them in the real picture about Millom. And many of them have turned around to us and said, OK, we get it. We're pulling out of the... We've actually bought one, but we've got 6 more in legals that we're planning to buy, and we're going to pull out of them. So we know from some of our developers that 12 houses they backed out of buying, and we also know that a number of sellers have backed out of selling them to developers where they've realised who they were selling to.
And Dean, let me come back to you. What's your understanding of the sorts of people who would be sent to these homes? Are they families, asylum seeker families, or are they likely to be single men? Are they likely to be strangers sharing houses? How do they reckon it's going to break down?
Well, that's one thing that we found out. We had a meeting with Millom Town Council, the police, some representatives from Cumbrian Council. One lady who appeared, and she said she didn't know who was actually coming into them, but then via video link, Cumbrian Council come on, and first thing they said, well, so when the asylum seekers come here, so it was like, hang on a minute, you've just said you didn't know on one hand, and on the other hand you've said asylum seekers. And as the meeting went on, it was, you know, it was said that they're probably mostly single men. But the main issue that the community has got up in arms is where they're situated. They're situated in between two 85-year-old residents across from schools.
Right.
No one's consulted with the community,
right.
which has caused a hell of a lot of frustration.
And these would likely be temporary residents as well, wouldn't they? Because if they're asylum seekers, they're presumably being housed there while their application's going through. So they might not even be there that long. Yeah.
These are the questions that we asked. I mean, you've got to take consideration for the asylum seekers that are coming here. There's nothing to do with Millom as it is. We're rural, it was secluded. And then we asked the council what was going to happen, you know, when the asylum when the asylum was done. They said they'd have to leave, but where are they going to go?
Yeah, right.
Nobody knows. From Serco's point of view, they're actually getting £750 a head and £3,500 per room for these people, and money's talking. They're not even taking our community into consideration.
Right. No, it's an incredible state of affairs. And Ged, let me ask you just about the town a little bit. I mean, if people were to move in there, I mean, I know that there's different opinions about whether asylum seekers can work and what sort of work they can do. But what sort of a community is it? What sort of people do for work there? What sort of community is it?
Millom is a great little friendly community where people look after each other. I've been a resident now in Millom for over 20 years. It's not the town of my birth, but I wouldn't live anywhere else now. And I'm really proud to live in Millom. I've seen the way this community came together to support the initial migrants coming out of the Ukraine crisis. Yeah. You know, where people opened up their homes for them. But this is unplanned, it's unconsulted, and it's not as if we're looking to house 2 or 3 families in Millom. We're talking HMOs, which are single rooms in houses of multiple occupancy, and the numbers are just vast. You know, we understand that the government are trying to disperse them across the country, and that not just the south should take the brunt of all these asylum seekers coming into the country. We get all that, but it needs to be appropriate for the community that you're sending them to.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
And then there should be some consultation, and then there's making sure that all the support is there if they do send them into communities, that the support there to make sure these people get the wraparound care, get the English lessons, get all the things they need, so that they can develop into good citizens, really.
Yeah. And that's another thing, Ged, I wanted to ask you. Sorry, Dean, let me come back to you. I mean, there is no GP surgery there, we understand. I mean, what we do know...
there is a GP surgery, and it is a good surgery, but it's under pressure like anywhere else. We've got no dentist. The transport systems, it is poor, buses and trains. You know, we're isolated. We actually, you know, we've been working well with Millom Council and everybody else in the area, and we've actually done a survey, and there's 112 people that actually need housing in Millom. Right. And these houses are getting snapped up cheaply by investors before anybody can even get the foot on the housing ladder, from young'uns right up. Right. There's people living in squalor. We found it's disgusting.
Yeah, it is awful. But that's copied all over the country. I mean, you know, you're in a particularly bad situation here with the Home Office, but you can bet your bottom dollar that there's lots of other communities in a similar place who might not just know yet because they haven't been smart enough as you have been to find out. And what's the situation currently with the Home Office, Dean, as far as you know? We're told that they might have sort of paused what it is that they want to do, but what's your understanding of the time frame?
Yeah, well, we've actually been working well with our MP, Trudy Harrison, and she managed to put the pause on with the Home Office, who've told us that no asylum seekers will be moving in until we've had consultation and they've actually addressed the situation. But as the emails that have been going around, going back from last year, they've stated that this isn't a fit area for asylum seekers.
So hopefully they'll be put off, because I know that there have been other cases around the country where they have just kind of literally given up. But they're spending a fortune on all of this as well. And Ged, that's the other thing that we don't ever get any consultation on. I'm sure your community, like many communities, could do quite well with the amount of money they're about to spend on something like this to improve the place as it is. You know, why not do that with the money instead of giving it all to people who are only going to be there temporarily anyway?
Well, you know, it is go back to the policy, and I understand the policy that this is where the government are sending money out, so that where councils are having to take their share of the brunt of these migrants, there is money then to provide the services and provide everything else that's required of them. So I get that. But it needs to be appropriate for the community that you're talking about, you know, and you can if you go into big cities, they're anonymous. You know, you can put a number of asylum seekers into a big city, nobody will notice. You put them into Millom, everybody knows each other in Millom. Yeah, there's nobody that's anonymous. You know, everybody will know with every new face that arrives in the town very quickly. So it's the appropriateness really of this. You know, we've got our own problems, we've got our own housing crises that, you know, whether it's social housing, whether it's a shortage of private rented accommodation, we already have those. We're a remote small town, we're probably the most remote small town in England. Yes. You know, our two service towns of Whitehaven and Barrow are at least 40 minutes drive away. Right. So it's why our locality is picked for this sort of number just doesn't make sense.
And I mean, that would be interesting, wouldn't it, to find out how you were selected, because it would be fascinating.
Yeah, I mean,
to see whether Britain
is where we as a council, you know, that's to us as a council the important thing. You know, Dean's talked about the advice that was given to Serco, and you've talked about it. Yeah, that seems to have been ignored. And we've managed, as I say, to talk to a number of developers, and the developers are telling us, well, we get the postcodes from Serco. They tell us where to go and find houses, right. And we can only do what we're asked to do to go and find these houses. And you know, I said, but when does somebody say stop? He says, well, we just keep going till Serco tell us to stop and say they've got enough houses.
Yeah. And they're making a couple of £1 billion a year, it seems to me. Let me finish up with you, Dean. I mean, what are you hoping will be the next stage then? Are you hoping that they'll just drop the idea altogether?
Well, going back to what you said before, how we were selected, we actually found out how we were selected during the meeting, and the police were there. The two Cumbrian councillors said that they'd actually consulted with the police, and it was over a postcode of LA14. And the only reason they picked our area is because there was no hate crime in our area. That was why they picked it.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, our stance is our town isn't ready to take this on. We're under strain as it is. Shops are shutting down. Our amenities are really, really poor. And we really need to start looking after our own and start putting money into the area. Shops, like say, the street in Wellington Street is shutting down rapidly. And with housing asylum seekers, it's going to give nothing to the community at all to get it back on its feet where it needs to be.
No, exactly right. Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you both for talking to me. Dean Myers, Community Action Group at Millom, and the Chair of Millom Council, Ged McGrath. We wish you luck, and do keep in touch with us because we'd like to see where this story actually goes.